What is the biggest meteorite you found?
Oh,
I
you know
heard you
what?
talking about that. Yeah.
That's a great question. So last year in August, I was at a show with my band, and I'm up on the stage playing, and we're just getting ready to start. And my phone kept ringing. It was my brother, and I thought, man, this must be an emergency because he's called 3 times in a row. So I
Oh,
answered it quickly, and he says, "Hey, are you going to Utah?" And I said, "No, I'm in San Francisco at a show." And he says, "Well, I think you're going to be going to Utah in the morning." I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because a meteor just flew right over Salt Lake City and broke up over the town with sonic booms and everything. It's caught on all these cameras." He goes, "You need to go out there because I think it landed in the flat desert out there in the just west of town." And he was right. So the next morning, I drove 12, 13, 14 hours, whatever it was. And I was on the ground that evening, and I went out there with about 5 other guys in the middle of absolute nowhere. I have a video on my channel you can watch about this. And I took the time to stop in the video and just do a 360 to show you guys no other human beings for miles in any direction, just a pool table, flat, bright white sand, dry lake bed surface where you could see a black rock, from 100 yards away sitting on top of that white sand, right? Well, anyway, me being a day and a half late, all the easy stuff was gone. And I was way out there on my electric bike. My electric bike got me out to where I wanted to be, but it was the battery had died. And I just set the bike down and I was just about ready to resign the day and head back in. And I noticed you could see where everybody was walking. There's footprints out there on that soft sand. And you could see where they were riding quads and other wheeled, bicycles or whatever. But this one hole, I saw a hole in the ground about the size of a cantaloupe, and it had like an impact ridges coming up on it. And when I walked up to it, I looked down. The first thing I noticed was there was no footprints, no tire tracks. And I thought, okay,
good.
this is
Good.
good. This is good because no one's been here yet. So then I got my camera out, and you'll see the rest of it on the channel, on my channel, that on that video. But with the camera on, I said, "Hey guys, I just found this hole in the ground. It looks like an impact crater. It's pretty big, and I'm the first guy here." So with the camera, I start digging down. I get about 8 inches down. Sure enough, there's a black rock in there. And yeah, so Gigmaster, what happened was is I popped out a big, 484 gram, huge, fresh meteorite that for 4.5 billion years was flying around in space. And here it is in my hand now. Like, that's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
And I popped it out. I held it in my hand. Two things came to mind. Number one, there was no one there to share the moment with. I'm like, you know, just me in the middle of the desert. Like, you don't even, there's not even worth doing a woohoo or nothing because there's no one there. So I
Yeah.
just looked at it, and then I started realizing, holy cow, this is crazy valuable. And I knew that only about 10 or 12 pieces had been found up until that point. And I knew by watching the group of guys that I'm kind of in touch with that kind of communicate secretly on these fresh meteorite falls, that's a very tight knit group. And I certainly had the biggest one. So I knew I had the biggest piece. So, yeah, to answer his question, that was my biggest one ever in size and value as well. But I went back to the hotel that night, and there was another meteorite hunter there from the TV show called Meteorite Men. They did three seasons. There was a couple stars on that show, and they had a guest guy that would always come on. His name is Sonny Clary, firefighter out of Nevada. And by the way, I'm a retired firefighter, so we've talked before about just being firefighter buddies. Well, as I'm walking in, he heard this in the story from somebody else that I found this stone, and he goes, "Hey, Dayton, show me your stone." So I walked back across the parking lot and put it in his hand, and he's admiring it. And he asked me, where'd you find it? And I told him about the hole. And he just went, "Oh no." I went, "What?" He goes, "Dude, I drove right past that hole." And I said, "Sonny, you did not." I'll tell you
No, there
why I
was no.
say that. There was no tire tracks. He
There
goes,
was
"Do you have a
none.
picture of it?" I go, "Yeah, here's a picture." So he zoomed in and he goes, I was at that exact hole. And I go, "No, you weren't." So he was going to head home that night. He was all packed up and ready to go. Next morning, he gets out and retraces his entire path. Sure enough, there's a whole different hole there.
Uh,
He digs down 8 inches down, and he pulls out one about 50% bigger than mine.
oh my gosh, you're
Wow.
So
kidding.
yeah, well, I'm not kidding. It was pretty
So
crazy.
you got him, yeah, you motivated him to go back and check that hole, the one he
Yeah.
was at, man.
So he found the biggest one, which we call typically when you find the biggest piece, we call that the main mass. But since they were so big together, we had probably the two biggest chunks of that rock, when it came in. Most of that meteorite landed in the Great Salt Lake itself in the water. Only the heavy pieces kind of carry through inertia, and the lighter stuff falls off. So most of those pieces fell into the lake. But the bigger stuff went all the way down to where we found it. And for you viewers that know Salt Lake City, there's a salt factory out there called Morton Salt. It's a plant right on Highway 80. And the biggest pieces were right at the edge of the plant. So we undoubtedly think that pieces are in the salt plant, but they're in the ponds. And we'll never see them, you know?
Yeah.
But we got the pieces that we could get on public land. So that was my biggest, to answer Gigmaster's question, that's the biggest piece I've ever found, yeah.